Hello and welcome to this latest Orlo webinar, the public sector approach to community engagement in 2023. Thanks so much to all of you for joining today. We've got a brilliant hour full of free learning, insights, conversation and a chance for you to ask questions of our expert panel today. So my name's Darren Caveney. I'm the creator and owner of something called Comms 2.0. So I'm really pleased to be your host today for the next hour. And I'm kind of the warm-up act for the star turns that will follow. So think of me as that. So I'll be pitching questions to our panel, who we'll introduce you to shortly. Just first off, just do the basic housekeeping. So we've got an hour that we'll run for approximately today. I think we did go over when we did this last year. We had so many questions from the audience, but around about an hour. So hopefully you've had a bit of lunch, or you can wait an hour and have your lunch afterwards. It's meant to be very informal and conversational. We're really keen to get your questions. I've got 100 questions scribbled down for the panel, but more important is to get your questions. So please, we would ask you to put your questions into the Q&A box, which you'll see. So either now or as we're going through the session, or as things kind of come into your mind as the speakers are talking, please do put your questions in there on all things digital and social media. The session is being recording, so we shall all be on our bestest behaviour today, and that recording will be available to all attendees who have signed up after the session. I think we've had over 260 sign-ups, so we've got a really bumper audience today, so thanks very much for that. So what are we going to talk about today? Main discussion areas are, each year now for many years, 7 or 8 years, I believe, Orlo have run an annual survey of public sector engagement. So we're going to be looking at some of the headline results from that. The full results will be available from your Orlo team, and you'll get those afterwards if you're signed up for today. We'll be looking at some of the latest challenges, the emerging trends. We know the pressure that, both people on the panel today, but also you at home or in the office are experiencing in your comms and digital teams. So we'll have a look at some of those and see if it chimes with your world. As I say, we've got a great panel on today, really interested to hear from them. So do pitch your questions to them. I'll get them to introduce themselves, I think, individually, because they're probably better at that than I am. So first off, we have Michael Stringer, who's Assistant Director of Communications at Surrey County Council. So hi, Michael. How are you? And can you say hi to the audience?
Hi, guys. I'm Michael Stringer. So as Darren said, I'm AD for comms at Surrey County Council. Before that was at Lambeth. In Surrey, we've got responsibility for fire and rescue. So there's a bit of blue light as well in my remit.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Next up, we've got Patrick Robbins. And Patrick is the Digital Public Contact Social Media Lead at the National Police Chiefs Council. So great to see you, Patrick. Can you say hi to our massive audience today?
Yeah, hi, Darren. Yeah, thanks for having me on. And it's great to have this opportunity to talk to you all about social media. Yeah, really excited. Working in a national programme in policing where social is very much on the agenda. So looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Patrick. Looking forward to hearing more about what you do. And finally, we've got Jack Fox, who's a social media consultant at Orlo, who many of you will know. Jack, hi, and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi there, everyone. So as Darren said, I'm Jack Fox, and I'm one of the social media consultants here at Orlo. So my role really is to kind of unpick digital challenges and help solve them through the use of Orlo and the support that we give.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that, Jack. So lots to go through today. Jack, do you want to kick us off really and just talk a little bit about kind of Orlo, all things digital and social media, and kind of set the scene a little bit before we dive into questions for the panel?
Perfect. Yeah. So as we said, before we jump into the discussion, I thought it'd be useful to set the scene for those who may be discovering Orlo for the first time or a bit unclear on what we do for the world. So over the last 10 years, Orlo have established themselves as the UK's #1 social media management platform. And obviously this is something we're all very proud of here at Orlo. But what I personally really love is our really clear focus and direction on supporting public sector organisations. But crucially, we couldn't have done it without all of our wonderful customers. So I want to thank all of you, including the attendees that are here today on this webinar, because your feedback and your input has been fundamental in shaping Orlo as we see it today. And in fact, what it's enabled us to do is develop a really kind of tailor-made solution for public sector to help empower communications professionals like yourselves and customer services teams to build trust and engagement with their communities through the digital conversations they're having every day. So that's really our purpose. And the reality is the vast majority of our customers aren't selling a product. They're not interested in lead generation either. Almost everyone using Orlo and the vast majority of people on this webinar are supporting a public sector organisation, and generally they deliver very complex, wide-ranging and crucial public services. So it's very different to the private sector. And therefore it's our job to support you, to harness digital and everything that comes with it, to build meaningful long-term relationships with your communities, and really to be able to listen to their voice and then act on the insight you get through the solution to improve the services you deliver. And so over the years, this understanding and appreciation of the nuances of public sector and the challenges, combined with the approach that we have, our consultative approach with customers, we've built some really strong lasting relationships now with, it's coming up to just over a third of UK local governments, half of the UK's police forces, central government agencies and NHS organisations, housing, charities, many, many more. I could go on. And in fact, over 70% of our revenue, I think it's 75% of our revenue now, comes from the public sector. And it's really exciting to see that continue to grow. And this continued growth and adoption of Orlo, it's down to the size of the opportunity, and we'll be discussing some of this today. And as an example, just in the last 6 to 8 months, we've experienced really quite a big upturn of public sector businesses contacting us. And I've personally been involved in many conversations on increasing community engagement. And I'm sure many of you have sat in meetings discussing how do we build a more engaged community, or use insight to create campaigns that help our communities tell our story and put a smile on the face of our audience as well. And with that comes some challenges. So with the increase of digital messaging, how do we manage that and set up a really slick customer service operation for digital? So I hope that's helped set the scene of kind of Orlo, a bit about our history and who we help and the challenges we solve. And a number of these we'll be covering in the Q&A as well. So really excited just to hand back to Darren to start the session.
Fantastic. That's really helpful. Thanks, Jack. So, so we're talking all things digital and social media and engagement. So we've tried to theme the opening part of today around some of the big things, the big ticket items that came out of the survey, which many of you on the call will have completed. First up, we're going to look at internal setup and strategy. So one of the things that emerged from the research, which we've been looking through, still, where are we now? 2023, still lots of teams in the public sector do not have dedicated social media teams. So that could be a comms officer who also does some social media. There are lots of configurations around this. Many teams, or many organisations rather, have got that situation where you've got inbound messages are effectively split by comms officers and customer services officers, many different ways of doing that. So what we've seen is there still isn't in 2023 dedicated social media teams in the majority of our organisations. So really just keen to put that one across to the panel, really, in terms of why you think that is, because social's not new, is it? You know, we're talking, been around for 15 or 16 years, some of the platforms now. So why do we think that is? Is this a strategic decision by our organisations not to have social media teams? Is it a lack of funding? We know that, you know, funding's been an issue for a long time in the public sector. Or is it a lack of understanding and almost a kind of not really having that realisation of senior leadership teams understanding the benefits of having dedicated people to look after this, that, you know, you do see much more often in the private sector? That was a very long question, wasn't it? Hopefully that made sense. So yeah, why do we think that is? And I'll go over to Michael first, if I can, from the world of local government. Why do you think that is, Michael?
Well, I think it's probably a combination of all the reasons you've just outlined. I think in local government, we're all structured quite differently. And so engagement and customer services through social media channels is often seen as two separate kind of services. So you've got social media that was always adopted by the communications team probably, and you've got the customer service element, which can often sit elsewhere. It does in Surrey, that's in a separate directorate. So I think it takes some quite big strategic thinking to bring those things together. And often it's just too difficult or too time intensive or resourceful to actually do that. And I think that's a big problem. But I do think it's something that the public sector can get better at. I think some councils kind of lead the way in doing it. I think the police are very good at doing it, and Patrick will probably touch on that in a minute. But I think it's also to do with the kind of the vast array of responsibilities that local government have. So it's not a case of simply responding to one particular set of questions or a customer service kind of element that a private company might be kind of providing one service. We would get comments and questions about such a huge variety of topics that people would, or people do, expect an immediate response to. And I think therefore it's a kind of a huge resource, and it needs customer service expertise in that space. You know, I wouldn't feel comfortable with my comms team just kind of handling those customer service inquiries without that input from their expertise. So I think it's a big structural issue in most local government organisations, and that's kind of symptomatic of a lot of the things we do. We just do so much that we can often be quite siloed as organisations.
Yeah, it's a really good answer. Thank you, Michael. And I think, and as you say, there is good practice out there, isn't there? And, you know, you think about, mentioned it before, Leeds City Council set up dedicated Twitter and Facebook accounts purely for customer services, you know, a decade ago. So there is lots of good practice out there. But as you say, demand upon comms teams is, you know, higher than it's ever been. And, you know, we've seen from the survey that actually incoming messages on social are growing. Customer services are always under pressure. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? But yeah, really useful to kick us off with that. Thanks, Michael. How about you, Patrick? In your world, how does this look and work?
Well, I think Michael was very complimentary there. We have a strategy for national policing which addresses this issue. The challenge is the implementation and the barriers and the challenges with enforce is, and I think to some degree a lot of that is similar to what Michael's just said as well. So we had an unplanned approach to social media from the days of just turn it on and see what happens and experiment, and trying to rein it all in and be effective. And I think against that backdrop of challenging, demanding customer services, which in our centre is a police control room and a contact centre, it's quite a unique type of customer service. And you know, you can only look through the newspapers or to scroll through Twitter to see what challenges public contact is facing in policing. So it goes back to that other caveat in your question there, Darren, which was around the benefits. And this is the same in the private sector as well, isn't it? It's return on investment. So what are you doing? What is the value? How are you going to drive that? And I think that is where we're at now, is, you know, measuring trust and confidence is so hard. But actually there are some hard metrics around the efficiency of digital contact, which hopefully we can use as levers within police forces to move. So I think we're at that stage where there's awareness. We're aware of the problem, and we've got an idea of how we can, you know, what the solution would look like. As ever, it's how do you get there, and how do you get that through all the funding challenges and all the priority challenges that we have in policing.
Yeah, brilliant. Really helpful. Thanks, Patrick. Talking of Leeds, we've had a hello from Nick Moore, the very man who set those channels up in sunny Leeds, my old university town. So hi to Nick. Yeah, Jack, I mean, obviously you work across all parts of the public sector. What are you seeing on this one?
Yeah, so whenever I'm speaking with councils or central government or housing, whoever it may be, a lot of it's down to the cultural element of customer services not being bought into actually managing social. So sometimes it's less operational, more just cultural. So the way that we try and manage that here is we have really clear training and the ability to be able to transition and take away some of the workload from comms, because ultimately their job is to be creative and communicate. We're here as communications professionals within these organisations. How can we maximise their time? And so by getting good at responding to social, it has a bit of a snowball effect where you encourage more and more people to use those channels. And that naturally does create more efficiencies because you're stopping people from calling. So that's a big benefit. And actually it can free up resource within contact centres, and we found that. But the other thing is, as well, is promoting digital as a service channel. Because we know if you go onto anyone's, a lot of people's Twitter, a lot of organisations' Twitter, they actually, signpost people to call or to email. This is something we can solve by actually being able to execute across digital really effectively. And so, yeah, it's that cultural versus operational challenge as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that, Jack. I suppose that moves us on to kind of resources in general. And obviously, after a decade plus of cuts across all parts of the public sector, one of the things we did see, whilst COVID was an awful time, one of the things we did see was almost a reinvestment back into communications teams. Some teams got bigger during COVID. One of the things that has come out in the survey was generally, not everybody, but generally, communications and digital teams have either stayed the same size over the past 12 months, or some have actually increased, which is fantastic to see. And we'd all kind of salute and applaud that, wouldn't we, on the call? Why do we think that is? Is that around leadership teams just getting a better understanding of communications and its importance, and digital and social media specifically? I mean, again, over to you, Patrick. How does it look from your side of the pond?
I think it's fair to say there is a lot of variety in that when you look it down nationally, and I think that's to do with funding and all the rest of it, which is no different, I'm sure, in local authorities. So there is that. And I think you're right. I think a lot of it is where they get the strategy right and they get their performance metrics and benefits right. Because if you look at, we're all funded ultimately from taxes or from government, and we have more intense, scrutiny around how that money is spent, and we have to be able to evidence it. And that can feel quite restrictive, but I think if you can get it right, that's where you get the investment, because they're saying that this isn't a cost, it's not a threat, it's an opportunity and a benefit when you get it right. So I think that's what we're trying to see. So I think in some police forces, their digital comms teams, as you say, have expanded. Actually, I think a lot of them are under quite a lot of pressure and asked to do quite a lot all the time, and do an awful lot on goodwill as well. So I would say it's a very varied picture, and there's some that are, have been able to get the right investment, and some are still struggling even today.
Yeah, it's a really important point, isn't it? And I think, I would echo that. I've certainly seen that on my travels over the past 12 months. I don't think there's ever been a harder time to be in public sector comms, and I think that's true for all parts, whether it's local government, policing, NHS. I think everyone seems to be under pressure, don't they? Yeah. How about you, Michael?
Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say my final point as well is getting your senior stakeholders to realise that building meaningful, authentic conversations with people takes a lot of time and effort, and it's not just a campaign that you put out for a quick win to solve a problem. And so there's a hearts and minds argument as well as the money. I probably didn't emphasise that in my answer. Sorry.
No, it's a great point. And I always say that social media is not a 5-minute job, is it? It's a full-time, long-term commitment, and it doesn't happen easily. How about you, Michael? Obviously, local governments, been hit probably worse than anybody over the years in terms of cuts. How does it look from your angle? And are you seeing any changes in this respect?
Well, I think COVID was a watershed moment for public sector comms, especially in local government. And I think it gave us the opportunity to demonstrate the value of comms. And I think across most of local government, I think senior leaders really saw the value of comms in the pandemic, and how important and how effective good comms could be. So that was a real opportunity, and I think that's probably reflected in the survey in terms of comms teams being protected or growing. But with that does come a huge amount of raised expectation about what we can do when we move back into kind of BAU. And as I mentioned before, the vast array of things that local government delivers. During the pandemic, we were almost able to purely focus on public health comms, and that's our entire resource focused on delivering or getting our communities through the pandemic. And then we slipped back into business as usual, and we've suddenly got all of these different services, all of these directorates stepping back up with that expectation of comms again. So I think that's why, although comms teams have on the whole been protected probably, and expectations have been raised, but we're feeling so much pressure, and I think that's reflective across the whole sector. On social media in particular, I think that is probably less to do with the pandemic and more to do with that just senior leaders being exposed to that more regularly. People can tag in a chief exec or a leader of a council into a tweet, and it gets noticed by those who kind of work their own Twitter accounts, and it's an immediate access, and they see 24/7 rolling news cycle. They see people contacting them. Things can snowball fast in the kind of modern digital world. So I think leaders are more exposed to our comms channels and kind of comms effectiveness, and therefore they are more in tune with it a little bit more than they were maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, some really good thoughts there. Thank you, Michael. Jack, I mean, again, you work with lots of different teams across the public sector. What are your kind of general kind of observations of teams getting bigger or staying the same or getting smaller?
Well, I really like Michael's point on the effect of COVID and the expectations growing of comms teams. Not necessarily that the budgets have grown massively and headcount is growing. In fact, from conversations I'm having, a lot of the time that's either it stayed the same or headcount has actually been taken. So comms teams are contacting us saying, well, actually, we need to be more efficient. We've shown what we're capable of and what we can do. And now, like Michael rightly points out, we need to be more efficient because the expectations of the output of our comms has grown, and actually the improvement of it over time. So when I talked earlier about over the last 6 to 8 months in particular, having more organisations contacting us asking for help, this is the kind of challenge we're solving is around how do we increase engagement, how do we reduce costs and be more efficient through the use of technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Would echo that. Thanks, Jack. We've had a comment through from David Bailey. Hi, David, who said, social media isn't free despite what some senior leaders previously thought. It's also both a science and an art. I would 100% echo that. And it needs highly skilled and dedicated people. Absolutely. Never met a social media person yet or a comms person that does social media that works a regular 37-hour week. And I think that's probably always been the case and always will be. So thanks for that, David. So yeah, don't forget, get your questions coming in, either on the topics we've discussed so far or anything we haven't yet discussed. So do put them into the Q&A, please. I suppose next I want to talk about platforms individually. I mean, newer platforms have emerged, haven't they, in recent years? We'll no doubt talk about TikTok in a while, but the big platforms still remain, don't they? Despite, all the changes, some of the criticisms, whether we like them or loathe them, the really big platforms are still around. So something like Facebook, which again, pretty much appears in everybody's top 3 most used platforms as a public sector organisation. What are you seeing specifically with a platform like Facebook? So all the changes that have happened over the recent years. I mean, Patrick, for you in the policing world, where does Facebook stack up in everything that's within our comms armory these days?
It's the most dominant channel, and I think we see stats, don't we? Like the most downloaded app. Well, we know why Facebook's not the most downloaded app, because it's already on everyone's phone. So I think people get a bit excited about the growth. I think the challenge we have in policing is that we don't lose a generation out of this, and we understand where the younger audiences are, but I think for sure we get really, really strong engagement on Facebook, and the audiences, the public, are telling us they want more locally tailored content, and we've worked out a way of structuring our accounts that fits in with that really well. So yeah, I think for now, yes, there's a lot of challenges and more challenges coming. I think in David Bailey's comment, the challenges around verification and more costs and all the rest of it. But that's where the majority of our engagement takes place at the moment. Just being aware that isn't all the audience that we're trying to reach, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, thanks, Patrick. That's really helpful. Michael, in local government world, and for you in Surrey, how does Facebook look these days?
Yeah, as Patrick says, Facebook's still hugely important and probably our main channel. And I think like all channels, digital and non-digital channels, it evolves. It's changed, and the audience on there has changed. It started off at universities, and now, a lot of broader kind of audience using it. And I think people go there for news and updates around their local community. And I think the key with Facebook is using it intelligently. So local community Facebook groups, engaging with people properly, having responsive kind of communications on there to issues that people are actually talking about. People will go on Facebook not just kind of for lost cats and clickbait videos, but for updates around planning decisions around the corner from their house, and to enter debates and those things. So I think it's a really important space for local authorities to be. But again, it can be resource intensive. And I think, as David said in the chat, it's not always free. If you want to put locally tailored content and geo-target it, it costs a little bit of money. Or if you want to really kind of engage through local community Facebook groups, it takes a lot of time. So we encourage, local councillors to be on there, contributing to debates. We monitor it all the time. I think, from Surrey's point of view, we could get better, but we're a huge geographic area, and we have lots and lots of different communities within it. So it's really useful to understand those different communities through Facebook. But yeah, I don't think it's going away. I think it's going to keep evolving, and our challenge is to evolve with it and to understand how best to use it.
Yeah, really good point, Michael. Thank you. Jack, again to you and kind of your observations. Facebook, with the customers that you work with, is it still a significant force?
100%. It's a community-based channel most of the time, and actually, if you can be transparent on the channel and really open to taking feedback and criticism and engaging, it's a great way of building trust with your audience. So yeah, I'd agree. It's definitely not going away and effective, but definitely a time resource channel.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll move us on to, can't call it a new channel anymore, but TikTok has emerged over the past kind of 3 or 4 years, hasn't it? Grew massively during lockdown, when we all had, perhaps some of us had a little bit more time on our hands. But it also seems to have kickstarted some changes in the market as well, doesn't it? Lots of other platforms have kind of mimicked and copied the things that have made it so successful. There are some fantastic public sector accounts out there. I always get told off when I don't name people, but South Yorkshire Fire and Rescue have been doing brilliant work with it. South Wales Police won the Comms 2.01 award for best social media account for its TikTok channel, which now has more followers than all of their other accounts combined. And my own hometown, I've got to mention Be Bold, Be Birmingham, run a fantastic account to really showcase Birmingham as a fantastic place to come and live and work. But what are you seeing in your sectors? Because, we've talked about resource issues, and lots of teams would probably like to go off and do more on TikTok, but all of this stuff has an impact on resources, doesn't it? So I suppose you first, Patrick, how's TikTok being used in the world of policing? And obviously there's been some recent concerns with security concerns with certainly government and the news we had a couple of weeks ago about TikTok being banned for ministers and civil servants. But what are you seeing in the policing world?
Well, I think it's fair to say that, it is ignore it at your peril. It's always in the conversation, isn't it? You'll notice there's probably a handful of police forces that have really started gripping this or dabbling in it, because I think there's a lot of learning and experimentation. But we've always said, and I'm conscious that David Bailey, my predecessor, is on the call as well, and would probably agree with this, is that you can't be everywhere all the time, all at once, and do it well. And this move towards, video content, you have to be invested in it. it goes back to, what your budgets are and where you want to be. I mean, the reach, you can't argue with that. And, with South Wales Police and I'm amazed by how many videos of policing actually out on the street is on TikTok. So we're already there, whether it's just we have no say in that content and what people see. So if we're not in that space, I see some challenges. But you're absolutely right with the security concerns, which I have to say it's not news to us. What's been in the news this week, we've known about this for some time, and the need for to keep it away from your core infrastructure. So at the moment there isn't a national position necessarily, but I think for every single individual organization has to be satisfied with their information security and compliance areas. So some forces will have different appetite for that, but so I think for one it's a watching brief for me, and you've already highlighted some pockets of some really good work. So but it's a challenge. I think the geography is a challenge, particularly around the targeting. So I think for brand awareness and reaching younger audiences, then it's fantastic, and recruitment and all the rest of it. But for that local content about things that matter that Michael was explaining earlier, that may not be the go-to channel. So it's hard, isn't it? If we have to be in lots and lots more different places to reach lots and lots of different audiences, we're going to have to be realistic what we can do. We have to do it well, so we have to be realistic what we're going to prioritize. Yeah,
it's a really good point, Patrick. I always think comms gets easier and harder all at the same time. But it keeps us in work, so that's
easier, is it?
Michael, how about TikTok for you at Surrey and local government more generally? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think I'd echo a lot of what Patrick said there. I think there are limitations on what you can do. I think so from our point of view, our fire and rescue service are using it and using it well, and like you say, kind of getting a lot of reach, new equipment and training videos and recruitment and stuff like that. It's really effective and it looks great. With local government, I think we're from a county council point of view, from a local authority point of view, we, like Patrick was saying, keeping a bit of a watching brief. We're dabbling in it, but you've got to really determine what type of content you want on there. I think when you're working in a political environment, it can be quite cringy, sometimes, and there's a kind of a fine line between, being fun and engaging and actually being a little bit cringe with your politicians and stuff like that. But I think there's definitely a space for it in that, service delivery, explaining what we do, showing, the human side of the council, that we've got people out there doing jobs, filling potholes, all of that kind of stuff. I think there is a space for it. But again, it's the two big questions of the resource. I'm always hesitant to start using a new social media channel without a proper strategy in place to keep it going and, keep it, full of content, and how we're going to do that and who's going to manage it and who's going to produce the content. And also the geographies, like Patrick said, you might reach a huge audience, but you don't know where they're from in terms of how local they are or how kind of specific to your geography you can go with the content. So there's still question marks over it, not least the security aspect as well. But there's no doubting its potential and its reach.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that, Michael. And Jack, again, what are your customers doing with TikTok? Is it on the increase? Is it widespread? Is it sporadic? What do you see?
Yeah, I think more people are dabbling with it. Where I see it being used well is being creative around more mundane subjects, like things like potholes, or if you're in housing, mould, or health information in the NHS, putting something a bit clever and together that's got a bit of humour to it, that maybe does explain your brand and the message you're trying to get across in a humorous way, which is naturally more engaging. So I think there was a housing association, I can't remember exactly who it was, but they put together a really nice TikTok which informed residents about how best to manage mould within their property, because it's one of their number one complaints, and it just made the whole subject a lot more fun and engaging. So if you can do it. It's just, like Mike says, you need to put the resource and time into it.
Yeah, and it's always that conundrum, isn't it? It's probably the comms team stopping doing something to free them up to be able to do it well. It's as simple as that, isn't it? Yeah. we've got tons of questions coming into the chat. You'll be pleased to know. So we'll be diving into those in a moment. Keep putting your questions into the Q&A area if you've got some. We've got plenty already, but we're always eager for more. So do putting your questions into that Q&A area. Thank you. I suppose one of the things that we've seen during the survey, which attendees, when they get the report, will see for themselves, is that kind of those inbound inquiries into social media are increasing. Because you wonder, don't you, has it plateaued? Is it declining? Is it increasing? From the survey results, at least, inbound inquiries are up generally across the public sector. And I suppose the question is, and what I'm interested in is that because people like me don't want to sit on a call centre telephone for half an hour? And if I have to, I might drop something through to an organisation on Twitter. Or is it because actually the service is better on Twitter? It's a better customer experience to go onto social media to ask questions. I suppose back to you, Jack, first. What do you see in with the teams that you're working with? Is it the first one or the second one?
I think it's something to do with behaviour change as well, and yeah, people not wanting to be on the phone. And I know a lot of the organisations we're working with, responsible for delivering services to the public. With the cost of living crisis, sometimes actually it's a cheaper channel for them rather than picking up the phone and using the mobile, the landline. And for a lot of people, they are really counting the pennies in that regard. So having a digital channel is really convenient. And the other thing is, if it's not urgent, people generally will use digital because they can back to looking after the kids or whatever. They get a message back, and it's a lot more adept to the behaviour and the journey that customer is going on, or that person is going on. And I think because there's so many channels now and so much choice, you've just got to adapt to it and make sure that you are open and you are actually picking up on these messages regardless of where it is, which can be really tricky for brands. So,
yeah. Thanks, Jack. Michael, what about you? Do you think it's because it's people not wanting to telephone and sit in a queue, or is it actually because it's a better experience to go to social and digital?
Well, it can be, again, depending on how organisations do it and set up. But I think people see it as more human. I think people see it as there's a person behind that social media account, and that could just be perceived or real, but usually it is. Whereas I think traditional customer service channels have become more automated, so people are probably losing faith in filling out web forms or going through automated kind of customer journeys on the phone or waiting on hold. And like Jack says, they can type out a tweet and send it and check back later if they've got a response and go and do their other stuff. But they see it as a more human interaction, I think. And also that's just where people are spending their time on social media channels, and it's become a bigger part of people's lives. So it seems the way that people do a lot of different things, get their news, pass the time, watch informative videos, and do a bit of customer service if they've got a query to an organisation. And I think also the fact that the private sector, many big kind of private sector organisations do customer service well on social media. It's just raised expectations as well, that's how you can get an answer.
Yeah, no, absolutely would echo that. Thanks, Michael. And Patrick, in the world of policing, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I agree so much with what's already said. I think something perhaps unique to policing is I always think about the amount of effort that is required on someone to tell you something that's happened, like the burden on them. And I think, like Michael's just said, whether you're filling in a form or you're waiting in a queue, there's just so much. So whilst it sounds really inconvenient to want more demand when you're already really busy, we know there's people out there who don't tell us what's going on out there. And that's because we've unintentionally created too many hurdles. So I think I see this really as a seamless experience. They're already on that channel already. forces, police forces that have already set this up and managed it properly, when they have created sort of post-contact surveys, they actually get really high customer satisfaction. So if we can prove that it's a cheaper cost to the organisation, we can get the customer services teams on board, because we already know it's a great experience for the citizen or the customer. So I think it's about, you know, being alive to where they are and thinking about their customer journey, which in private sector they've been having these conversations for 20 years, but this is still relatively new, certainly in the policing sphere, to start talking about a customer experience.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Patrick. So talking to customers, and we've got lots of questions in the chat, as I say. One of the themes that's come out is Nextdoor, which we haven't talked about too much yet. So we've got Christopher Walton, we've got Adam Keating, who I know well from sunny Southend-on-Sea, and also Nigel Newman, who I know from unequally sunny Shropshire by the sounds, all asking different questions about Nextdoor. I don't know what your experiences are on the panel of Nextdoor. We'll find out in a moment. But Christopher really talking about being able to see some of the comments as a local authority, kind of pressure from councillors to be in that space, to be engaging on Nextdoor, but some of the barriers for a comms officer to be able to physically do that. Adam's really talking about, one for Jack here, I guess, what kind of integration is there with the Orlo platform, or what might be in the offing. And I think Nigel really just reiterating some of the points we've heard before about, yeah, absolutely, it takes so much time to do all of these things well. Nigel's saying they're having some good success with Nextdoor in Shropshire, but analytics can be difficult to get hold of. So three kind of prongs, really. How, as a comms team, do you use Nextdoor to engage? Can it integrate with Orlo, or what are the plans for that? And really analytics, how do you get analytics from Nextdoor? Anybody want to wave a hand and go first on that one? Michael?
I'll take one of those, but I'll leave the analytics and the Orlo integration to Jack, I think. But I think in terms of using it, it's almost like the opposite of TikTok in terms of what we were talking about before, where it's less about kind of creative content and kind of going viral, I think someone's put in the chat. And it's more about the hyper-local responsiveness to very specific issues. And I think that just shows the breadth of channels available to us, isn't it? You know, that's just two, and they're at polar ends of the spectrum, really. But we do use it in Surrey, and we find it really useful. We use it kind of proactively rather than in engagement space. So we'll post kind of local information or things that are specific to a local area in there, but we won't kind of engage with comments because they can quickly snowball out of control and out of any kind of time that we can deal with them. But we do encourage councillors to use that space and can kind of brief them on local information if they need to respond to queries on there. And I do think it's a really, really useful space to understand communities as well, and to monitor and understand what people are talking about. But yeah, I think it's a great channel. But again, I think analytics is tricky with it. I'd echo that thought because we don't get a huge amount.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, another comment in the chat actually along the same vein from Victoria Williams about the analytics. So yeah, Jack, from your perspective in terms of analytics, integration with Orlo, what are your thoughts? What's possible and what might be in the offing?
Well, we've been knocking on Nextdoor's door for a while.
It's tricky to say, isn't it?
It is. And we've had a call. I think Phil, our MD and head of product hards, have had a call with the guys at Nextdoor. And as soon as something's available in terms of their API offering, we want to be front of the queue. So we're ready and waiting when they're ready to develop it.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Patrick, you seeing use of Nextdoor in terms of policing and comms?
Yeah, less so. I would say maybe 1 in 4, 1 in 5 police forces using it. Some absolutely swear by it. Policing gets a bit of a privileged access to the system. When you put something out, everyone gets it, but that comes with great responsibility, if I'm not paraphrasing something from somewhere else, because you really can't bombard them with rubbish content that they don't want. So it can be a really, really useful tool when used well. I think the listening, it's just, I mean, hyper local. What comes after hyper local? That is the insight you want if you're a beat officer, for sure. Strategically, when I've worked so hard and David Bailey's worked so hard to manage contact properly on our social channels, we can't sort of build too fast. So that API conversation between Nextdoor and the social media management platforms such as Orlo is a prerequisite for me before I'd give it the real green light. We don't tell forces what to do, but I'd really endorse it once we had all that structure in place behind it. And I think Michael made that comment before, isn't it? It's about strategy and not just sort of going, oh, well, that looks good, we'll give that a go. That's when all the stars would align for me. But yeah, there's a lot of potential there, and analytics needs a lot of work for sure.
Yeah, no, really useful. Lots more chat and questions coming in. The big news is that apparently it's now raining in Southend, so I've put the kibosh on that. Sorry, Adam. More questions. I mean, Kate Yeo's got one, which is back to TikTok, and it's really about how local authorities are, I guess, responding to that government reaction from a couple of weeks ago. And we've touched upon it a little bit, but do we expect to see local government being asked to take their TikTok channels down? I mean, it would seem a great shame to me on a very selfish personal level. As I say, TikTok account for Be Bold, Be Birmingham is absolutely fantastic, and promotionally for the city is incredible. But one of the other things it does, which I think doesn't get talked about too much, but I think is really important, is its growth as a search engine. And if you think about young people considering where to go to college or university, they are hitting TikTok and putting in the hashtag for Birmingham or Liverpool or Bristol to check out what's happening in those cities. And so it's not just about, posting funny videos, is it? It's got a much wider use. So yeah, is there anything more to add on that? Do we expect there to be issues for local government being asked to take TikTok channels down? Jack, have you heard anything on your travel?
No. So as far as I'm concerned, the status is as it is through the news. It's obviously disappointing to hear that, but with genuine concern around security, we just have to kind of play it by ear really and see what happens. But it's kind of the same scenario with Twitter and all the changes going on there as well, and keeping an eye. So like with anything with social, everything's just fast moving, and we've got to adapt as quickly as we can as an organisation to support our customers on that. So if we know anything more and hear of anything more within either of these channels, we'll be the first to kind of shout about it.
Yeah, it's probably, as you say, something to keep a watching brief on, isn't it? Certainly, and and across all of our public sector comms communities to be sharing the very latest. As you say, the big platforms have had their own problems in the past, and it hasn't stopped us using them, has it? Facebook, we can say it's had data breaches in the past. It's been fined by the Information Commissioner's Office in the past for data breaches. We didn't stop using it as a result. So yeah, we need to take it seriously, but I think knee-jerk reactions are often not the right response, are they? So yeah, let's wait and see, but keep a very watchful eye on it, and as a community, kind of share and keep in touch, and talk to one another about it. Question from Tom Dixon: are organisations restricting social media responders, Orlo users to comms and customer services teams, or embedding more widely through an organisation? I'm sorting out our Orlo renewal as we speak. You'll be pleased to hear that, Jack. Have you paid Tom to say this, by the way? Sorting out our renewal as we speak. We're looking at culling accounts from 280 down to 200, but it's creating an admin and support overhead in its own right. Any thoughts there for Tom?
I think the gist of his question is something we're experiencing in Surrey, and it's the amount of social media accounts that people set up across the organisation purporting to be from the council. And when I arrived in Surrey, we had over 300, I think, and we set about kind of consolidating those because it's a huge reputational risk. And a lot of them, we don't know who the owners are, or they've just gone quiet for the last few years. And so it's just messy. Orlo has really helped us do that, and we've kind of got some of the kind of wayward accounts into that system, so we've got better oversight and can and a lot of opportunities across those accounts as well. So I think it's using the channels you are using and the accounts you are using well, rather than the amount of channels there are, because there can be too many. And I think it's a lot of the immediate answer to non-comms people is, let's get an Instagram account to share how great we're doing on this, with no strategy, with no kind of insights, no real understanding of that channel or how to use it. That's their immediate go-to. I can set up a Twitter account. I'm going to set up a Twitter account and start sending out loads of stuff. And you see it happen all the time. And we have kind of put in a fresh social media policy in place here to try and not kind of immediately say no, but properly review that and make sure it kind of comes through us and has a proper understanding around it. So I think social media channels or accounts need to be reduced across every organisation in the public sector, but the ones we do use well.
Yeah, I would 100% echo that. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? 10, 11, 12 years ago when I was in house, we were always being asked, can we have a Twitter account? Can we have a Facebook account? It's interesting, it's still happening. How many requests do you get a week, Michael, for a social media account, would you say?
Several. Well, I'd say several a month, definitely.
Several a month. It's interesting.
And that's the people who ask.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always interesting, isn't it, when you do a social media review? I'm sure you've all done them. When you find the accounts that nobody knew about as well, and they can cause real problems for an organisation, can't they? They really can. Yeah. And as I always say, a social media account is for life, not just for Christmas. Yeah. How about you, Patrick? I mean, it's something that's probably happened.
It's been a massive issue in policing, just like Michael said. Some forces had hundreds of accounts and hundreds they probably didn't know about. So we've been sort of pushing kind of like the strategic, but also the tactical. We've sort of said, look, it's your job really. If you're digital comms, you should be checking every month, you should be auditing, you should be looking what's coming up, definitely searching on your name as well, impersonation accounts and all this other stuff coming up. You've got to be quite active. Again, I know it's time consuming, but again, your job is to prevent the crisis. So you've got to be proactive. I think in terms of users, then, we don't want to take away police officers' voice. That authentic police officer voice is sometimes the most engaging content from our audience. They do tell us that. They've got to be on brand and in our case, in line with values, and you do need policy in place. But we sort of summarised it quite succinctly, really. There was more contributors, less accounts. And contributors can mean lots of different things. There's not one model. So I know one police force where they have a kind of news desk type mentality where it's like the stories are fed in so it's only one person posting, but it's a collective view of stories. And we have other ones where we entrust, local officers and local teams to do that role for them. And it seems to work quite well. So I think we're definitely nowhere near finished, but we're on the right road, in the right direction to travel, I think. And I would echo everything Michael said.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Really handy. A question and a plea, I think, from Fraser Searle, who's a bit north of Tyne Combined Authority. Hi to Fraser. Can we do anything to encourage Nextdoor to get the API in place? I think it's become a common thread of this webinar, hasn't it? We're not picking on Nextdoor. It's just these are just requests, aren't they? I don't know. Is there something as a sector we can come together to say, look, it seems like it's an important platform. It's got a role, but there are some issues there in terms of what comms teams can get from it. So I don't know. I'm looking at Jack a little bit. Jack, should we put that on your to-do list for something to do?
Yeah, that's probably a bit over my pay grade, to be honest. Yeah,
come on, we can give you
aware of it, and we know they're being a bit reserved in their release, but we're just hoping that they do it soon. So when they do it, we'll be straight on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you do need to look at business models as well, because Facebook and Twitter are trying to work out how they're going to make money. So it's to reassure Fraser from a policing point of view, I've said strategically we will really support Nextdoor if you have the API. We can't do any more than that.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Patrick. I suppose one of the other areas from the survey looking at results was digital transformation. We've been talking about this for a long time, haven't we? So it's nothing new, but it's equally still really important. We've all seen the pressures on comms teams, particularly since COVID. And as Michael said, that hasn't gone away. I think the expectations are still there, but with the business as usual list to deliver as well. And I think almost comms teams have been a victim of their own success. They did so much during COVID, and it's almost expected that those 60, 70-hour weeks can continue, and they can't. It's not sustainable. But there is a bit of an expectation in some organisations. Digital can be a part of the answer, we know, can't it? It can make everybody's jobs a little bit easier if you've got the resource and the investment in place. I mean, Jack, is there much more you can tell us about digital transformation? Maybe some of the case studies. I know you've spoken a little bit about housing. You say that's a sector that's done good things in terms of digital transformation. Is there anything from that world that you can share with us and the audience today in terms of lessons and insights?
Yeah, so within the housing sector, there's the white paper that came out, the new regulations around tenant satisfaction. So as a sector, they're looking at all different ways to improve the customer journey, right? And naturally, with rent caps coming into place as well, there's a big, there's just a challenge around revenue generation, essentially. So they're looking at technology as a way of being able to increase or maintain customer satisfaction, but at the same time reduce costs. So it's a bit of a conundrum there, really. But regardless of whether you're in housing or whether you're in local government, there's technologies out there, and we've put chatbot onto social media channels now, but we've also got a live chat with a chatbot as well. So the beauty of it is we can set it up in 24 hours and you'll be ready to go. Traditional approach is quite costly. You need a lot of consultancy. So we've reduced that out, and Bromford have had some amazing results, right? So they got set up in less than a day, 26% deflection rate, and that has led to about a £9,000 a week saving for them. So the possibilities are huge, and especially if comms teams are managing social media's inquiries and they're not going to customer services, if we can put a chatbot on Facebook and we can put it on Twitter like we have, there's ways we can just really kind of take some of that pain away, really.
Yeah, we all like that, don't we? Pain's not good. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. Few comments in the Q&A area. Nick Moore up at Leeds. Social media customer services for me is a lot less intimidating and time consuming compared to older, more traditional channels. You can fire off a message and then go and put the kettle on. So there's some wise words from Nick. Georgia Beatty, also up in Leeds. We've got the Leeds Massive in today, haven't we? Talking about the success that their library teams had with TikTok and fantastic results for some of the content. It's the same for every platform. It's about understanding your objectives and measuring your performance. So as comms people, that's music to our ears, isn't it? Because we're all about setting objectives and then seeing if it's worked or not. So yeah, big shout out to Georgia. Yeah, we've got 4 or 5 minutes left. Is there anything we haven't covered yet that you think is important to share, either Jack in terms of the survey results, or Patrick or Michael, just in terms of you and your worlds and any kind of insights or top tips for the rest of 2023 in terms of all things digital? So Jack first, just in terms of the survey results, anything we haven't covered that you think is worth people looking out for when they see the full report?
I think we've pulled out the key areas, to be fair, in terms of what's really important. The key channels around TikTok, the challenges around that, ways you'll be being able to increase and maintain community engagement and how to do that. And it's not going to get any easier, right? So you're going to need help, especially with the resource, being expected to produce more with less. So from my point of view, I think we've done and covered the key areas. So, but if I find out anything more, I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Jack. Before we move on, Hardeep, from your colleague from the Orlo team, said, Hardeep is head of product and development at Orlo. We're in active open conversation with Nextdoor UK, and we're working together to get the parent company in the US to prioritize the API release. So hopefully some good news on the way there, and takes the pressure off you, Jack, doesn't it, then, to have that on your to-do list? So Hardeep's sorting that out. So thanks to Hardeep. Yeah, I suppose, Patrick, anything that we haven't really covered that you think was useful to share in terms of all things policing and digital and social?
Well, I suppose, that we are doing something very different. There's a case study. I think David Bailey's put it in the chat there. We've got a dedicated Instagram account for children and young people, and they're engaged in a way that our control room can't be. They can have conversations that can take place over weeks, months, even, to build trust with young people. And there's a content library there which suits quite well to Instagram to get be the trusted voice. So I just think if you check out the chat, you can check out the channel, but there's also a webinar link as well, which they did some work with David. So I thought I should probably push that out, because it's just a bit different to what we normally do in policing, for sure.
Patrick, you've been multitasking there, haven't you? You've also been in the chat. That's
well, I help a lot of police forces, support them. I work with Meta and Twitter. Historically, have been very good. Hopefully, that will continue. So I often try and help my public sector colleagues wherever I can without spreading myself too thinly. So sometimes, if you do want to ask how policing's dealing with some of those tiny challenges you get on your accounts, then I am happy to help.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Patrick. And shout out thanks to David Bailey for the links you've been sharing in the chat. That's really helpful. Michael, quickly across to you. Anything that we haven't covered that you think from the world of local government, digital and social, that we should know about or think about?
I think just kind of reflecting on the conversation we've had, I think there are so many different channels. It's always about choosing the right one for the objectives you're setting, for the work you're doing, because they're all so different and reach different audiences. And also, it's not just one channel, it's always the right mix of channels as well, and that's digital and non-digital. And some of the traditional channels are digitizing and evolving, aren't they? Outdoor advertising and things like that. So it's having that breadth of thought when you're planning comms to kind of really understand each channel. And also, content is always kind of really key, and getting the right content for each channel.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. Question in the chat from Angus Carter. Is there a link to the survey results, please? Yeah, that will be coming out to you. So if you've signed up for this webinar today, or any of your colleagues that couldn't make the actual call, you will be getting a link to the survey results. So do look at those, and they're fantastic. And just in terms of benchmarking and some of the important internal conversations you have to have with your leadership teams, just using that benchmarking, it can be really, really handy, can't it? So do that. So we're at time, and one of my jobs today, because Gemma from Orlo will tell me off if I don't finish on time, is to keep us on time. So just a few of the key takeaways, really, from the session and from the feedback and all of your contributions. Facebook is still a thriving channel within the public sector. It will be, and it will continue to be that and to do that for us. So, whilst new channels emerge, some of the old favourites are still important to us. Taking advantage of AI technology, this is only going to grow and grow and grow, isn't it? And no doubt we'll have dedicated webinars to talk more about this in the future. For the third year running, the expectations to do more with less continues. But if team sizes reportedly remaining the same or increasing, things are looking up. But, we also need to think about our mental health and well-being in and amongst all of this. So that's another one to keep a watch on. The future of TikTok within the public sector remains unclear, but it certainly feels like there's a place for it in our comms strategies. And finally, after riding out the pandemic, the current economic downturn brings a new set of challenges, but teams are well equipped to deal with increases in inbound demand. And I think we've seen lots of examples from that today. Jack, do you want a final word from you, just in terms of how's your social life, Jack?
Well, I won't answer that, Darren. That's fine. But we're a friendly bunch here at Orlo, right? So come and have a chat with us, whether you're just getting started on social or you're looking for a solution, whatever kind of position you're in. We're happy to have a chat. Use the QR code or the link below within the slide. And it'd be great to have a chat about what you're looking to do, challenges, thoughts, whatever it may be.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Jack. So it leaves it to me to say thank you to you, Jack, to Patrick and to Michael for all of your insights. Thanks for giving up your time. Really appreciate it. Thanks to Gemma and the team at Orlo for setting up today. There's always lots of work goes on behind the scenes, isn't there, to make these things happen. And thanks to the audience. I think we had over 140 live on the call at one point, which is fantastic. Thanks for giving up some of your lunch break. I hope you can go and get a cup of coffee now, a bite to eat, Adam, go and get out in that rainfall in Southend, and just generally thanks to everybody. Look out for the email that will follow with, we'll share the slide, share the link to the survey results. Thanks again to everyone that's taken part. Go and enjoy the rest of your day, and have fun on social media. See you soon. Bye now.